Yellowjacket wasps tend to be a nuisance in the summer and fall months. Some build nests in people's houses. Wasps can even be deadly for those with allergies. Entomologist Jeff Vaughan sees the beauty in these creatures. Thanks for coming on the show today.
You're most welcome.
Well, first of all, a lot of people know about bees, but maybe not so much about wasps. What are the big differences between a yellowjacket wasp and a bee?
Right. Well, bees generally are more tend to eat more plant material. They like to collect pollen and that sort of thing. Whereas wasps, they're much more carnivorous, so they'll go out and hunt and collect other insects, and they're much, you can think of them as meat eaters.
Okay, so they're little hunters. How do they become troublesome for humans?
Well, they become troublesome with humans because, first of all, many of these wasps will nest, as you said, in the structures, and also during the end of the season when their numbers build up, they're out looking for meat, they're out looking for sugar sources, and they're not afraid. They'll come right into you and try to take the material right from your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I've been part of that process you just described. Be out at a picnic or something like that, and they just love food. So what are they doing?
Well, what happens normally, the wasps that we have around here, the yellowjackets that we have around here, during the early part of the summer, they have a very tight social structure, and so they'll go out and they'll hunt insects. And their structure is maintained by the presence of a dominant queen. As dominant, as long as she's present, everybody knows their place and will follow the rules. But when that queen begins to die, when she leaves, the colony structure begins to fall apart, and that's when they become much more aggressive. And that's when the problems begin.
So does that happen every fall then? The queen dies or leaves the nest?
That's true. They have an annual cycle. So every year in the early spring, the new queens will come out and start their new nests. And it takes them a while, but after several weeks, they'll develop a new brood, build a nest, and develop a new brood of daughter workers.
Okay. And so you're saying in the fall, when the queen dies or leaves, it's chaos.
It becomes very chaotic.
They're just running around. Well, what are some ways we can avoid being bitten?
Well, one of the things to be aware of is that many of these wasps are after sugar and after meat. So if you're having a picnic in the late summer, and you just cover your food when you're out there, and just be aware that they're out there hunting.
Okay, so just know that they will be a guest, whether you want them or not. Okay, and we actually have a nest that you brought here, and explain how they build their nests, because they look like paper.
They do look like paper. And in fact, they are a form of paper. What these wasps will do, they'll fly out, and they generally choose solid dead wood, like lumber, and they'll chew it up and make a paste out of it and return to the nest and form their paper nest out of that.
And where do they usually nest?
There's two forms that we have here. Some species prefer to nest in a cavity, so they'll be either underground or, as you said, between walls. Okay. Other species prefer to make their aerial nest out in the open, in tree, and attach their nest to trees and branches and things.
Okay, like the one we saw.
Like the one we have. Yeah.
Okay. Why do they particularly find, I guess, in siding of a house or something like that as an appropriate place to nest? Well,
one advantage is obvious, that they're protected from the elements. Okay, so they don't have to worry about the swings in temperature, cold at night and hot during the day. But there's a downside to that, because then they have to spend a lot of time excavating, and as the colony begins to grow, they need to make more space. So some species prefer to go the other way around and say, well, we'll put up with the weather, but then it's easier, we'll spend our energies expanding the nest.
Sure. Well, you know, going back to the picnic thing, and we have a picture too of one of these wasps. I think it's eating an apple or something like that. You'll often find them eating old dried fruit, or not even dried fruit. It's still moist. Pop. What is the importance of sugar? Do they make honey like bees?
No, they actually do not make honey like bees. What's happening there, they're simply getting sugar in order to sustain their flight. So they're using it for their own energy.
Okay, so they're not necessarily taking it back to a hive, building anything with it? Okay.
No. During the time that they're rearing their young, now you had a picture of the nest up there, they rear these little grub-like larvae in those cells. They will feed the cells on meat material, either dead insects that they collect or meat that they scavenge. But for themselves, to drive their own energy, they need sugar. Some sort of sugar, whether it's apples or whether it's your Kool-Aid or
Okay,
that sort of
one
thing.
last quick question. Is there a beautiful side to these insects?
I think there is a beautiful side to the insect in terms of the way in which they form these societies that are very protective of one another.
All right, just stay out of the way.
Stay out of the way.
All right, thanks very much for coming on
Okay,
the
you're
show
most
today.
welcome.